Well, good afternoon to you. 506 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up potentially this hour, a statement from Special Counsel Jack Smith. I told you moments ago, the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, expects yet another indictment coming. C-SPAN is now confirming, it looks like on their Twitter account, do we call it X now or Twitter? Their Twitter account, that's how I understand it, that Jack Smith is going to speak live shortly. A lot of activity there as Jack Smith is set to make some sort of remarks. We will go to them if that occurs. In the meantime, we have a congressman standing by who is a part of what I would say is a very real scandal involving a president of the United States. And that scandal involves the Biden family. Congressman Pat Fallon is here. He's a member of the House Oversight Committee, and he was involved in questioning Joe Biden's business partner yesterday, Devon Archer. Congressman, great to have you with us.
Vince, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Give us a sense. I've seen a bunch of headlines now out of the Devon Archer testimony yesterday, including that he said Joe Biden was on the phone with their business partners over 20 times. But what more can you tell us?
All right. So, Vince, if we go back to the beginning in 2019 when Joe Biden was running for office and said, I have no idea what my son does, and I've never met with any of his business associates. He said that very clearly. He built a firewall.
Yes.
Well, now we know for a fact that he met with Rosemont Seneca, which was one of the shell companies that Archer and Hunter Biden put together. He met with 7 of those folks that work there at least 80 times in the White House. Just those 7, never mind other business associates of Hunter's. He hosted them. He golfed with them. He ate dinner with them. He was on 20-plus conference calls with them that we know about from Archer.
Yes.
He even wrote a letter of recommendation for one of Hunter's business associates' kids. He was deeply involved. So if that was the case, why did he lie in the first place?
Right. And what would be the explanation for why you would lie about something like that?
Well, maybe it's because he was covering up a Biden family syndicate where they were peddling influence and selling access.
Right.
And I did some TV interview a couple weeks ago, and the gal asked me rather pointedly, give me a specific instance where this access was sold and Joe Biden did something for it, which was a decent question, tough question, but a good one. And I said, and this is very important for your listeners to hear, I said, okay, well, explain this to me then. I said, in the beginning of 2015, Viktor Shokin was hired as the prosecutor general for Ukraine. In September, the American ambassador to Ukraine, appointed by Barack Obama, Jeffrey Pyatt, said that we've got to root out corruption in this country, and by name said Mykola Zlochevsky, who was the CEO running Burisma, the energy giant, who Joe Biden's son happened to be on the board of. He was on the board of Burisma with Devon Archer.
Right.
They have a board meeting in December in Dubai where Zlochevsky asks Hunter, ring up your dad, because that's the way the Europeans say call. They don't say call, they say ring up. So ring him up. And on that call, Archer was there. He says, Hunter says to him, Dad, they need our support. 3 days later, Joe Biden flies to Ukraine as the sitting vice president, says, I'm withholding $1 billion in aid until you get rid of Viktor Shokin, the prosecutor, who's looking into Burisma. Wait a minute. Then Shokin seizes 4 homes, 2 plots of land, and a Rolls Royce of Zlochevsky's. He's fired a month later, and the Ukraine gets the $1 billion. Tell me that's not pay to play.
Okay, let me make sure I understand this correctly, because I feel like I haven't heard some of the elements of this. What you're laying out, that phone call where they say, get your dad on the phone, that was Devon Archer's testimony yesterday? They spoke, okay, on a conference, or they put him on like a speakerphone, Joe Biden. And Archer said, Joe didn't say, hey, I got your back. Joe didn't say, he was pleasantries. You know, like what Dan Goldman said. Oh, they're just talking about the weather. But then Hunter said they need our support. He made it very clear. And I just did a town hall. I said, I think the Bidens were smart enough not to be that stupid, where they're going to, in an open phone call, on speakerphone,
specifically say, this is exactly what I'm going to do for you for the money that you've certainly given my son and allegedly given me. Because the 1023, you and I talked about
yes.
a month ago, where in 2015, Zlochevsky is reported to have given Hunter $5 million and Joe $5 million, not to mention the 50 to 80 grand that he was giving Hunter every month.
Congressman, I want to make sure to emphasize this Burisma stuff because I'm very confused by the headlines that have come out from yesterday because I'm not clear on what Devon Archer was saying specifically. So let me just cite one of the things I've seen today by way of Molly Hemingway's reporting. She says that this meeting took place in Dubai in December 4th of 2015. That's what you just told me, right? December 2015?
Yeah.
And that these
December 2000. Yep.
Great. And that these executives for Burisma are sitting there with Hunter Biden and Devon Archer. And she said that according to Devon Archer's testimony yesterday, Zlochevsky and Posarski, these Burisma executives, they wanted Victor Shokin fired, and Hunter put Zlochevsky and Posarski on a call with, quote, D.C., according to Devon Archer yesterday, just generically D.C., and that Archer told you, the members of Congress, that he didn't know who was on the other end of the line because he wasn't a part of the phone call. Can you square these stories for me?
He's thinking a different, it's that, but also there was a time where they were indicating that it was Joe. It was Joe Biden. That's who Zlochevsky wanted to talk to Hunter's dad.
Right.
So they play these games with the guy, the big guy, the dad. I mean, the IRS investigative agents weren't allowed to pursue who dad was, who the big guy was. How are you going to do a proper investigation if you can't ask those rather obvious questions that we already know the answers to, but to put people under oath and ask them that?
Okay, so did Devon Archer bring up multiple phone calls with Joe Biden and Burisma? Was that a part of the conversation yesterday or just one?
He said that he wasn't specific, that it was like a parlor trick, that Hunter would get his dad on the phone, and he did it more than 20 times when they were in business meetings with various people.
It's fascinating. So Dan Goldman, as you mentioned, he came out yesterday and tried to offer a prebuttal to all of this. He was making excuses for Joe. He was claiming that Joe was merely discussing the weather and niceties. Were you left with that impression from Devon Archer's testimony?
No. Again, if the ambassador to the United States that your administration appointed, to represent the United States interests, by name says Zlochevsky is the poster child, I'm paraphrasing, but he's the poster child for corruption in Ukraine. Why is the vice president of the United States' son on his board getting paid tens of thousands of dollars a month? Right there, that should never have happened. And yet it did. And then if you're the president, you don't talk to Zlochevsky. And then you go over there and you get the prosecutor fired who was on this guy's backside.
Did Archer?
By the way, yeah, go ahead. It's just one last thing.
Yes, sir.
Once Shokin was fired in March of 16, Burisma was never investigated again. So the Bidens delivered their end of the bargain for Zlochevsky.
Okay, so I just want to emphasize this last point, or at least I want some clarification on it. Did Devon Archer say that Burisma wanted Shokin fired and that's why they hired Hunter?
Hunter said, well, what they said was Hunter, that was the brand. That's what he brought. He would always bring that to the table, which was his last name. According to the 1023 and the confidential reliable informant for the FBI, that's specifically what Zlochevsky told him, was I hired Hunter. He's not smart. I'm going to have to hire somebody else that knows the business because he doesn't. But he and his dad are going to take care of this, and they're going to make it all go away.
Did Archer add to your understanding of that then? How did Archer explain why they were even connected to Burisma?
He didn't. And that's why I would like him to come in front of and have an open hearing where 50 or 60 members of Congress can ask him specific questions, because you always learn more when you have hearings.
What about I've asked you before about this, Congressman Pat Fallon. Tony Bobulinski, were his public statements bounced off of Devon Archer at all in order to say, hey, look, was this your understanding too? Because, for instance, Bobulinski said that 1,000% Joe Biden was the big guy, that he was referred to as the chairman of the Biden family. It was clearly Joe Biden's business. Did Devon Archer have to contend with any of Bobulinski's assertions?
I don't believe so. Not to my knowledge. I'm going to read through the transcript again.
Okay.
Because, as you mentioned before, Bobulinski, the big guy. What did Zlochevsky tell the FBI informant? Bobulinski doesn't know Zlochevsky, and Zlochevsky called Biden the big guy.
Yes.
So that was a terminology that clearly Hunter was using. My theory is the way, because Hunter was the bad. To me, it's very clear that Hunter was Joe's bagman. And who else, what better person to be your bagman if you're going to be a criminal than your own son? And they communicated directly about this stuff when they weren't in the same room through encryptions, like encrypted text, encrypted calls, that kind of thing.
Yes.
That's my theory. Because, again, they were smart enough not to be that stupid.
What do you think Devon Archer's motivations were yesterday? Obviously, he was there under a subpoena, correct? A congressional subpoena to testify. But what do you think his motivations were, if you could suss them out?
He used to be – this is very important. This is a great question, Vince. Thank you for it. He was his best friend. Devon Archer and Hunter Biden were best friends, very, very close. And you can read this in the text or the emails that they sent to each other back and forth about, yes, brother. They were getting rich together. And it's exciting when you're successful financially. And then, he got convicted, and then it was thrown out in 2018 and then reinstated. So now he's got to do a year and a day in jail. So I think his motivations are honestly conflicted. I think that he feels, honestly, some allegiance, and he's also slightly bitter. I think it's a combination of the two. And, life's complex.
He feels betrayed by the Bidens.
I think so. I wish he would tell – I think he's still holding back. I really do. I don't think he necessarily – I'm not accusing him of saying anything that was untrue. But you can hold back lots of stuff that if you're not asked specifically, you don't volunteer. I think that he's a treasure trove, and I'd like to continue to have a conversation with him.
Will Tony Bobulinski be appearing before the Oversight Committee? I've asked you this before, but I just want to see now that Devon Archer's done it, should we expect that testimony soon?
I hope so, and I'm not talking just Bobulinski. This is how you conduct an investigation, right? I mean, Watergate, the break-in was in June of '72. Nixon resigned in August of '74. It took 26 months. We're really 6 months into this, maybe 7 months now. That's it, because we didn't have subpoena power until January. So I think there's a lot more to uncover. And Vince, if you and I were talking at the beginning of the year, I would tell you that we can prove that the Biden family took $1 million from foreign nationals. Now I can tell you for sure it's at least $17 million. And if you add the $10 million from the 1023, now we're at $27 million. And it could go, I think it's way over 50. It could be over 100. I don't know yet. And if the Bidens, here's one question people should ask. If the Bidens did nothing wrong, then why won't they cooperate with the investigation? Why wouldn't they just give us all their bank records so they can prove that this is nothing but a wild goose chase? Why not also give up geolocating information from the cloud? So like in 2017 from the WhatsApp message that I'm sitting right here with my dad. That's what Hunter said to the Chinese guy he was shaking down. Well, was he? We could prove that, but they don't. They're not cooperating because I think he was there.
Of course. And so, and also among the questions that you would ask if they were innocent, then, okay, go ahead and explain why you have dozens of bank accounts that are moving this money all over the planet. Go ahead and explain why you were routinely buying and using burner phones to conduct your business if it was all on the up and up. Go ahead, explain all of that. There are no explanations for that other than criminality.
I've never owned a burner phone in my life because when I was in business, and it's, honestly, when I was in business, I was in business.
Uh-huh.
I got nothing to hide. Who in the world forms 20 shell companies? And this is a question I asked at the town hall, and I ask it every time when we're in oversight, and the Democrats never answer it. What did the Biden family do? What service did they provide? What goods did they sell? Why was he getting all this money? This guy who's on crack, frequenting prostitutes with no experience whatsoever in the industries that he is purportedly involved with. Why are they giving him all this money?
Yeah.
And they can't answer it. They can't answer the question. I mean, 170 suspicious activity reports. Now we know that he was selling the brand and proud of it. We got the testimony there. We got the 1023, the big guy, and then all these other whistleblowers. And then he was being protected by the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the IRS, not the rank and file agents, the higher-ups, the political appointees.
Yeah, there's something very corrupt going on in our government, too. That's a huge piece of this. And we are awaiting the word from Jack Smith, the special counsel, this hour. He's supposed to be speaking soon. And apparently with another indictment in hand for the former president and perhaps future president of the United States, Donald Trump. Some reports coming through now that the indictment is related to the election, Congressman. So I know that you can't react to an indictment that hasn't been dropped yet, but boy, a lot of suspicion about our government right now coming from all places.
Vince, I think every time President Trump gets indicted, he probably goes up 2 or 3 points in the polls.
Yeah.
So you look for another tick, and then if the hack from Georgia, Fulton County DA, that'll be another couple points. It's their credibility has been shot. I mean, how many times now? I honestly have lost count. It's either 3 or 4 indictments at this point, and we'll probably end up at 5 or 6.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It's like the boy that cried wolf. You keep saying you're seeing a wolf and there's no wolf.
No question.
I don't look anymore.
And their job is to protect the integrity of our justice system, and, of course, they're undermining it with every one of these ridiculous actions. Congressman, thank you very much. Congressman Pat Fallon, good to talk to you as always, sir. All right, we are keeping our eyes on the courthouse here in Washington, D.C. Will there be another indictment of Donald Trump? Trump thinks there's one coming. He expected it at the top of this hour. We are still awaiting a statement from the special counsel, Jack Smith. The Biden administration, Joe Biden, may be prepared yet again to drop another indictment against his political opponent. And according to Fox and their reporting, an indictment has been handed up relating to 2020 election interference in the January 6th probe, waiting for it now to be unsealed to find out the name. That is Chad Pergram in just the last few minutes. We have a very fluid situation. We'll cover it here as WMAL continues. Well, good afternoon to you. It is 5:35 now, WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us today at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Okay, I am seeing that there are reports now that former President Trump has been indicted, apparently yet again, by the special counsel Jack Smith. We're awaiting a live statement from Jack Smith as the Biden administration is trying to crush their political opponent. Donald Trump insisting that yet again we're seeing election interference play out here. We also have a statement just out from the Trump campaign in the last few minutes. This is the statement that they've released. This is nothing more than the latest corrupt chapter in the continued pathetic attempt by the Biden crime family and their weaponized Department of Justice to interfere with the 2024 presidential election, in which President Trump is the undisputed frontrunner and leading by a substantial margin. But why did they wait 2.5 years to bring these fake charges? Right in the middle of President Trump's winning campaign for 2024. Why was it announced the day after the big crooked Joe Biden scandal broke out from the halls of Congress? The answer is election interference. The lawlessness of these persecutions of President Trump and his supporters is reminiscent of Nazi Germany in the 1930s. The former Soviet Union, and other authoritarian dictatorial regimes. President Trump has always followed the law and the Constitution with advice from many highly accomplished attorneys. These un-American witch hunts will fail, and President Trump will be reelected to the White House so he can save our country from the abuse, incompetence, and corruption that is running through the veins of our country at levels never seen before. 3 years ago, we had strong borders, energy independence, no inflation, and a great economy. Today, we are a nation in decline. President Trump will not be deterred by disgraceful and unprecedented political targeting. You know, we are in the primary phase right now. Republicans are supposed to be running against each other about who's to become the nominee for the Republican Party. Some of these guys have, made impressive showings. Vivek Ramaswamy, boy, he went from somebody who not that many people knew to now a lot more people know him. He's bringing a lot of energy. He's got a lot of optimism for the country. He's pretty inspirational. And I hope he's there regardless of what position he's in to help improve our country going forward. But throughout this primary process, it keeps on getting interrupted by the fact that the Biden administration has been interfering in it. They just keep going after Trump for novel never before charged crimes, trying to criminalize the fact that he was the president of the United States, to connect him to things that he's not even connected to suggest that he was leading an insurrection on the country by, filing legal challenges to the way the 2020 election was conducted, and then leaving office on Inauguration Day in 2021, heading off to Mar-a-Lago. That's how he staged an insurrection? By telling people to peacefully and patriotically make their voices heard at the Capitol? What was it exactly? The New York Times now has a breaking news alert on this subject. Former President Donald J. Trump was indicted Tuesday in connection with his widespread efforts to overturn the 2020 election. The first criminal charges to emerge from a sprawling federal investigation into Mr. Trump's attempts to cling to power after losing the presidency to Joseph R. Biden Jr. The indictment filed by the special counsel Jack Smith in federal district court in Washington accused Mr. Trump of a conspiracy to defraud the United States, a conspiracy to threaten the rights of others, a conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding before Congress, and an obstruction of an official proceeding. This is rich. So now they're going after him here. Now, never mind the fact that Democrats have called into question every presidential election this century. Never mind the fact that Democrats have previously sent alternate slates of electors to Congress in order to try and get their guy in. Never mind that there's plenty of precedent for the left to suggest that there were problems with voting machines, for instance, in the 2004 election, or to claim that the elections were stolen by the Republicans. Bush in 2000, Bush in 2004, and Donald Trump in 2016. Hillary Clinton to this day says that the election was stolen in 2016. And the left worked overtime to try and debilitate the presidency on the basis, Donald Trump's presidency, on the basis that it was illegitimate from the start. He shouldn't even be in office. The Russians put him there. Remember all of this? And we're going to prove it. Adam Schiff got up day in and day out and insisted that he had all the evidence, the circumstantial evidence. We have plenty of evidence that he was colluding with the Russians to steal the last election. That was the Schiff position. Where are Adam Schiff's charges? Where are Hillary Clinton's charges? Where are Al Gore's charges? Where are charges for every Democrat member of Congress who stood up and objected to the Electoral College votes on January 6th and all of those other years? Where are those charges? Obstruction. Conspiracy to threaten the rights of others. Conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding before Congress. How? How do you arrive at that conclusion? Additional headlines now. Trump is set to appear in federal court Thursday, is what they say, 2 days from now. So what we're witnessing is, once again, they could, look, you want to create faith in our system, faith in our institutions. You don't constantly use our institutions to attack your political opponents. If the Biden presidency was a success, they wouldn't need to do this. If the Biden presidency was the kind of thing that you could brag about, they wouldn't need to do this. But that's not what we have here. The Biden presidency has been an abysmal failure for the country. Now, it may not be a failure in terms of their goals. It's been a failure for the rest of us, though, right? The state of our economy, inflation out of control, our borders collapsed, our cities are rotting from the inside, drugs are flowing in, sex trafficking and death is only growing. That's all in America right now. So the story they have to tell is non-existent to the voters. So what they have to do is demonize the other side, in this case, Donald Trump. And I've been saying for some time, they're making a gamble here. I don't know if it's going to come through in the general election, but the gamble that they're making is that if they can scandalize Trump enough during the Republican primary, they can ensure that he wins the Republican primary, because they know what's going to happen. Republicans are going to solidify their support for Trump. They already have. Every single one. You heard the Congressman, Pat Fallon, say it at the top of this hour. Every time one of these indictments drops, Donald Trump's support goes up because people see him as being unfairly put upon, unfairly set upon by a system that's trying to destroy him for political reasons. So they say, screw you, I'm supporting this guy. So he'll make it through the primary. He'll be the nominee at this rate. They're guaranteeing it. They're doing everything they can to guarantee it. Simultaneously, they are convinced that they're going to scandalize him enough that they're going to do, what does Nancy Pelosi call this? The wrap-up smear. They'll scandalize him enough that in the general election he will lose. That moderate voters or independent voters, whatever word you want to use for people who haven't made up their minds or are willing to have their minds changed or are willing to stay home potentially if they don't like the options, that it'll be enough to guarantee that they can put the mannequin back in the White House or whoever they're going to run as the Democrat nominee. That'll be enough to get him over. That's the gamble. Now, I don't know if that's the case. In fact, I'm beginning to think it might not be because I'm seeing more and more polling here that's suggesting voters. I saw one. Here's an example for sure. Donald Trump has higher favorability ratings right now than Joe Biden has approval ratings. Donald Trump's favorability at this moment is a couple of percentage points higher than Joe Biden's approval rating, which means this is somewhat of a jump ball. And really, at the core, it's about the swing states. It's not actually about we shouldn't get too distracted by the national polling because national polling is scoring an irrelevant game fundamentally. Yes, it's taking the temperature of the country, but this is where those obvious semantic arguments matter, whether or not we're a democracy or a republic. And in our republic, we have the Electoral College, and that's why the swing states are so important. Donald Trump successfully has turned some swing states into solidly red states. Florida is an example of that, a place that seems like it's going to vote for a Republican from now on, at least in the near future. That's a good thing. But a lot of tough battles out there, whether it's Wisconsin or Arizona or Pennsylvania. Does Trump succeed there in a general election? Are the election systems changed and fixed enough to make people confident in the results out of those states? These are the questions. And so right now we await Special Counsel Jack Smith. He is going to make a statement. I can tell you in advance he's not going to take questions. We've already seen him do this before. He comes out, he issues some sort of mealy-mouthed statement, he walks off as the Biden Justice Department once again meddles in the election. Let's take some phone calls here in reaction to this as we await Jack Smith. We've got Kevin calling in from Manassas, line 5. Kevin, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince, I mean, I like what you talked about them taking a chance in the election is, one thing with this plan they have. But, I was talking to my mom like last week, and she lives in Florida, and she's, in her 70s. And, she was lamenting to me that, I'm afraid that they're going to lock him up. They're going to try to take away my right to vote for who I want to vote for. And I told her, I said, Mom, I don't think they're going to lock him up. I hope not. Because unfortunately, Vince, there's a lot of patriotic people in this country, and in light of all the corruption that Biden and the Democrats, Hillary Clinton with classified documents, and Biden and all the stuff going on with the bribes and nothing being done, I'm afraid January 6th is going to look like a picnic compared to what some folks are going to do. And, I think there's going to if they're stupid enough to lock up President Trump, former President Trump, and try to steal the rights of half of this country to vote for this man and all this made-up propaganda crimes that he, quote-unquote, committed, I'm afraid there's going to be a revolution in this country, and it's not going to be pretty.
So what you're saying, I want to make sure that this is crystal clear. This is not a suggestion that you'd like to see something like this happen. You're making a very obvious social science point, which is that the more unstable a country becomes, the more likely it is for uncivil action to take place.
Yes, I mean, those of us who are old enough to remember the Soviet Union, have studied, Nazi Germany and place. This is stuff that we read in history books that went on in Nazi Germany, the Soviet Union, in China, in North Korea, where they come in there and they just take away people's rights. We have a constitution. Yeah. These people are govern us by us giving them the right to govern us. It's not a totalitarian system.
That's
although
right.
The Democrats would like it that way.
That's right.
And unfortunately, if they decide to keep on pushing them buttons, I'm making, like I said, just an observation as a person out here watching.
Totally.
We saw what happened on January 6th, and that could have really went a whole lot worse than it did.
Right.
And I'm afraid they're gonna light a powder keg off, and they're gonna start something that they're gonna take a genie out of a bottle that they can't put back in.
Yeah, maybe it's time for people to take to the streets though, just to protest. Like, it's a perfectly good constitutional American right. just to protest, just get outside the Justice Department and make people's voices heard. You know what I mean? And maybe it's time just to.
That's an awesome idea.
Yeah, get outside the White House and say, we've had enough of this. This is not the country we want to live in. We don't trust you. And this is happening. Kevin, thank you. I want to point out, I want to make a point, but Bill calling in from Manassas now, line 4. I'll let him make it for me because Bill, it's amazing what we're watching happen this week, isn't it? So now, all of a sudden, Donald Trump's set to be charged with 4 counts by the feds related to the 2020 election at a very convenient time, huh?
Vince, it is absolutely amazing to me that every time that Biden gets hit with a bombshell, i.e. testimony yesterday, that immediately they respond with another indictment or something. It's called a deflection, distraction, and the media jumps all over it, but never covers the real truth. It's just unbelievable that the American people, that they're falling for this nonsense.
It's clockwork.
The media is. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's like clockwork every time. Every time Joe Biden is in peril of his own creation, all of a sudden more election meddling coming out of the agencies that Joe Biden controls. Isn't that something? Bill, thank you.
It is incredible.
Yeah, Bill, thank you.
They got bullets in their pocket. It's like they got bullets in their pocket, and every time that something comes up with them, they're going to fire another bullet at Mr. Trump. President Trump.
I think we're watching it happen today. Thank you, Bill. I appreciate the call. Okay, no statement yet. The cameras have switched on. The feeds will be switching on soon inside of that courthouse, awaiting a statement from the man who looks like he's been tasked with taking down Donald Trump. Not sure that they're going to succeed in that, but boy, they're trying. It is. Okay, the indictment is out. Jack Smith, not out just yet. They say now that he will speak around 6 p.m. I don't know why they give us these false starts. Oh, he'll speak at 5. No, it turns out he's going to speak supposedly at 6. We'll see. We'll, of course, continue to have complete coverage of all of this here on WMAL. And the great one, Mark Levin, is just up minutes away. We're not going to want to miss any of what he has to say about the events of this week, whether it's on Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, Devon Archer, and that whole criminal enterprise, or what the Biden Justice Department is doing today. The Biden administration dropping yet more indictments on Joe Biden's political opponent going into this next election. And it's all about this one. What I'm staring at here, these 4 counts, are all about Donald Trump challenging the results of the last election. That in the wake of the election, they say the defendant spread lies that there had been outcome determinative fraud in the election and that he had actually won. These claims were false, and the defendant knew that they were false, but the defendant repeated and widely disseminated them anyway to make his knowingly false claims appear legitimate, create an intense national atmosphere of mistrust and anger, and erode public faith in the administration of the election. Boy, isn't this amazing? So now the side that eroded faith in our election process is accusing Donald Trump of eroding faith in our election process. The people who, set up drop boxes across the country and told us that's the way to vote. That's the way to vote now. Forget election day. We have election year now. It is truly remarkable. We will have complete coverage of this, of course, across WMAL, but tomorrow as well on the Vince Coglianese Show. I'll give you the details of what we know. We, again, are just minutes away from some kind of statement from a special counsel who works for Joe Biden attacking Joe Biden's top political opponent, Donald Trump. It's the country we live in right now. The great one, Mark Levin, is now just moments away.